Hello everyone, and welcome to Thursday, and welcome to a RealReal video. So I have not done a RealReal video since I think June, but this is actually September 15th, so we're kind of going to talk about July and August. And actually, September 15th means that it is RealReal payout day for the sales that everybody had in August. So if you do use the RealReal, which I'm assuming if you're here, a lot of you do, I hope you're enjoying the money that the RealReal just put into your account. But today it is just me, of course. I've been doing some videos alone on Thursdays because obviously Ryan's teaching now, so he is busy during the week. So some of these Thursdays it's just going to be me and you. But for RealReal videos, it's always just me anyways because I am definitely the RealReal person of the household. I use the RealReal all the freaking time. I drop off multiple giant packages each week, and I am like in constant contact almost every day with my RealReal person, asking for estimates and giving her lists of stuff that I'm sending in, asking for labels. So I am quite active on the RealReal, but a lot of you guys know that anyways. So today we are going to be discussing some fall kind of related RealReal topics. First, we're going to talk about some brands that I really like to send into the RealReal that relate to fall categories. So it's going to be coats, blazers, jackets, sweaters, boots, stuff like that. We're going to talk about brands that when I find them, and oftentimes these brands make these categories, I choose to send them in versus selling them myself. And I'm going to tell you a little bit, just really a little bit about the brand, and then kind of maybe some price estimates of what they price them at and why I like to send them in versus sell them myself. And then, as per usual with the RealReal videos, we're going to move into some of my recent really good sales, or just some sales that I wanted to tell you guys about for some specific reason, like a brand that I send them all the time, a brand that I'm telling you probably shouldn't send them, reasons like that. So that'll be at the second half of the video, but first we're going to start off with the brands. And when I talk about my sales, it's going to be July and August. I could talk about items that sold so far in September, but people have 14 days to return items. So things that already sold in September could still be returned. So I just don't really want to dive into September yet. We'll leave that for a future RealReal video. But I will say before we jump into it, my RealReal has been doing very, very well in August and July. August's payout, which is coming today, is going to be my highest payout to date. So I'm very excited about that. I've been like really amping up my use with the RealReal, which I feel like I say that every time too, but I have been investing in pieces to send them that I know they're going to mark super high or they'll sell super quick. So it's been paying off. Love the RealReal. If you want any information on kind of my opinions on the RealReal, my experiences, tips for beginners, and how to, I do have a whole playlist of RealReal videos that cover all those, because we're not going to get into them today because I feel like I've talked about kind of the how-tos a lot. So I will link the playlist below if I can figure out how to do that, which I'm sure I can. So that'll be below if any of you guys are interested, or if you're new to the RealReal. It is a website where you consign luxury clothing, but I will say they take a number of brands that I would not consider luxury. But yeah, that's all in past videos, so you can check that out if that interests you at all. But let's dive into some of the brands that I do send to the RealReal quite often, or whenever I find them. So the first brand that I have listed is a coat brand, and I'm gonna kind of tell you what category specifically I'm thinking of when I talk about the brand. And I think I'm also gonna move over like right here. So I'm gonna be off center throughout this video just in case Editing Jack would like to put maybe brand tags or like an example over here. And so my first brand is a coat brand, and it is called Flourette, F-L-E-U-R-E-T-T-E. I believe that this brand is actually a branch off of Loro Piana. If it's not, it is a brand that uses Loro Piana wool. And if you don't know Loro Piana, it is like the most expensive coat and wool brand basically that exists, and they are extremely expensive. And since this is a brand that is related to them, they are also extremely expensive, and the RealReal does know that, whether it be vintage or newer. So the vintage labels are like all in cursive and you can tell they're vintage, and the newer ones are kind of like text stamped font. But Flourette makes really expensive wool and cashmere coats, and the RealReal price isn't very high. So if you find them, I always send them in. I don't think they do too well on Posh and selling yourself, so I always send Flourette to the RealReal. So if you do, I would recommend that you do as well. I've talked about this a number of times and it still remains very, very true. So Dior, not Dior Monsieur, which is like their old men's line. That does not get marked very high. But Dior blazers. And I don't mean you gotta go out and find like 2020, 2021, 2022 Dior. You can find some 80s, 70s, 90s Dior blazers, and the RealReal marks them so well. I think just literally today, I saw that a Dior blazer that I sent them in, I paid $15 at a Savers. They marked it at $295. And it's like a super vintage Dior. It's from the like Dior The Suit line from like the 80s. $295. There is no way I could get that much on any website anywhere. Not saying it's sold, but there is no way I could get even close to that. So definitely Dior blazers, vintage or newer, definitely send them in. Also with Dior, send in everything. They mark Dior so well. So absolutely do that. There's a brand called Schlamps or Schlamps. It's a fur coat company that they mark very, very, very high. SCHLAMPPS. I have a coat that I sent in. I think I found it at Unique, and they priced it at $525, which is great. Macintosh is another coat brand that I send in all the freaking time. Macintosh makes like super nice long wool coats, and some just like hit at the hip wool coats. The RealReal prices them. It can fluctuate a little bit more than some of these other brands, but they usually price them very well, and they do sell quite well on there. So if you find wool pieces from Macintosh, I would send them in. Escada coats, I would also send in, and I'm talking like the wool coats. The blazers, they don't really mark too high, but if you find Escada, again, whether it's new or old coats, I would totally send them in. They mark them very, very well. If you have any Veronica Beard jackets or blazers that are just not doing that well for you, because I've noticed on Poshmark recently that Veronica Beard has kind of slowed. I haven't sold one for a hot minute, so I've actually slowly been trickling some to the RealReal because I do have quite a few of them. They do mark them very well. I would say they mark them between 200 to like 400, depending on the style and everything. So if you have Veronica Beard pieces that are just sitting around, I would send them in. They mark them very well. And anything over 200 hits that top consignment percentage tier, so send them in. Burberry jackets and coats. Once again, if it's sitting for you, it's a style that's just not selling well or doing well, I would send them in. They always mark Burberry coats and jackets really, really well. Every once in a while, if it's Burberry's, like a vintage piece, they'll mark them a little bit lower. But still, if it's not doing too well for you on a different platform, I would send them in. Neiman Marcus and Saks Fifth Avenue. So they do not always take this brand. Sometimes you gotta send it in like 50 times to get them to take them. But if you have like a trench coat or a wool coat or a cashmere coat or something, once they do take them, they're gonna mark them really well. So I would send those in as well. Max Mara, once again, I'm talking like wool coats. Just like Escada, Max Mara blazers do not get priced very well on the RealReal. For those, I'd say like 50 to 100, which seems quite low because we all know the retail of Max Mara. But the coats, they price so high, which makes sense because they're so expensive retail. But the Max Mara coats, I do send those in if I have them. Cinzia Roca coats, we just had Cinzia Roca on the last jacket and coat bolo. And actually when I find it, I send it to the RealReal because it is, like we said in that video, like slightly older money. Poshmark isn't really the place to sell it. And eBay probably it would do better, but the RealReal marks it well, so that's what I do with them. Soya and Kayo is a brand of jackets and coats that they make mainly, I feel like, puffers, but they also make like wool coats. The RealReal used to price them higher, but they still price them very well. And they usually sell quite quickly. And again, I think it's a little like obscure. I don't picture it doing well on Posh. So I send Soya and Kayo in to the RealReal. Oscar de la Renta, and with Oscar de la Renta, everything. Kind of like Dior, just send in everything. They market all really, really well. Dresses, jackets, coats, etc. So I always send in Oscar de la Renta if I find it. Theory or Vince leather jackets or even leather pants, they mark very, very well too. So I would send those in as well, unless maybe it was super, super modern and super trendy, then I would sell it myself. Otherwise, they'll market well, and leather sells quite quickly on there. Then we have a couple like outerwear brands that I wouldn't say they mark super high, but if you find them very cheap or at the bins, I would send them in and I would definitely pick them up. I'm talking Obermeyer, Helly Hansen, which might be surprising to you guys, but they do take them, Spider, which also might be surprising, and Bonnier. So I send those 4 coat brands in all the time. Helly Hansen I know makes like athletic wear as well, which you could send in, but they're going to market very low and the percentages just keep dropping. So it's not going to make you a lot of money. But if you find coats or jackets from any of those 4 outerwear brands, they mark them probably like 100 to 175. So I would send them in if I were you, if you found them for cheap. We're getting almost to the end of this list. I know, like I always say, RealReal videos are just like me, like talking and talking and talking and talking. No breathing, just talking. And they can just kind of run on. So I do apologize. I'm just trying to get as much information out to you guys as fast as I can. Next up is White and Warren. And their sweaters actually do get marked quite well by the RealReal. I sent in a sweater vest cardigan and they marked it at like $185, which I feel like is a little higher than they usually would do. But still, once again, if you get like a good price or good deal on one, they mark them quite well. St. John as well. I don't know if y'all are like me, but St. John like does not sell anywhere for like any money unless it was like encrusted or had a graphic. But for the most part, St. John, I can't sell it anywhere. But the RealReal does take it, of course, because the retail is like crazy. They don't market very high. I will say they do not market high at all, but it sells really quick because they market slightly lower. And I feel like a lot of us who maybe have a St. John piece, it's sitting. So if it's sitting and you just want to move it along, send your St. John in. Brochu Walker is another sweater brand that they mark quite well. Similar to White and Warren, they market pretty high, usually over $100, and it will sell decently quick. So I would send that in too. Gianvito Rossi, boots, shoes, or anything, I always send in. They mark them so high. I know they've ever so slightly started to mark them a little bit lower, but they mark them very high, especially boots. I would send them in. Usually their stuff sells really quick. And last on my list of fall related things is Fry. So they do take Fry boots, but kind of like St. John, they don't market very high. So if you have Fry boots or shoes or whatever that are just sitting and you're okay with just maybe breaking even or just moving them along quickly, I would send them in. I've sent some like knee-high boots that get priced a little bit higher. The shorter boots or the flats and stuff are literally going to be priced at like $50. But Fry boots, if you just have them sitting, they take up a lot of space and you want to move them along, I do send mine in sometimes and they will sell quickly. Again, not for a ton, but they'll sell quick and then they're out of your house. So those are the brands that I have for you guys today that relate to like fall. These are like coats, boots, jackets brands. Yeah, hopefully that helps. If you have any of these brands just sitting around or you've been like looking for something to do with them, or if you have seen them at the bins and you've maybe like passed on them, now maybe you'll pick them up and send them in because a lot of these are pretty quick flips. Some are priced super, super high and some aren't priced like as high as we'd all like, but they will move quick. So sometimes with the RealReal, that is the thing. You just like, you send it in because you want it gone and you want to make something from it. And with some of these, that is the case. But yeah, I hope that that helps some of you guys. I never really know exactly what information you guys want in these RealReal videos, but I'm always here to make them and give you the info that you want. So let's, as usual, jump into some of my recent good sales. And like I said, we're going to be talking about July and August, and I'm going to be moving back to the middle of the screen as I just did because I'm going to do a split screen situation where you can see the item and then you can see me, and we're going to talk about the sale. I'm going to tell you why I thought it was of note, and so I'm going to tell you what the item is. I'm going to tell you what it sold for. You guys might see the original listing price, but I'm going to tell you what it sold for, the percent off that it was, and then how much I make. So my first one, we're starting with July, is a Cinzia Roca coat, like we just talked about. This sold for $81.25, and you might be like, whoa, the price next to you is way higher because it sold for 75% off. I get 57. I'm still making money on that. I think I paid like 20 or 25, but that tells you how high they did price it at, because 81 was 75% off. So it just so happened that this coat was a little plain, and I guess it was off season and stuff, so it didn't sell, but they do mark it high, as you can see. I also sold this Trafalgar belt for $70 on there. That was 30% off, and I get 28. Trafalgar makes suspenders and belts, and I think they make bags, and they do take it at the RealReal, and they mark it quite well, because a belt being listed for $100 is very, very good in my opinion. So if you see Trafalgar at the bins, or even for like $1 or $2, I would totally pick it up, even the suspenders, and send them in. I also sold this self-portrait lace dress for $157.50. That was 30% off. If you have self-portrait that's sitting around, which I was just looking in my own Posh closet, and I found a few that I think I am gonna send in. I would send them in because I'm getting $110 for this, which I think is really good. They priced it very, very well. So yeah, I think I'm gonna send in all my self-portrait that's just been sitting around. They also sold this Burberry gray coat for me, and it sold for $142, which was 60% off of the listing price. So they did list it quite well. But once again, a lot of these coats were listed in the off season, so I think that's maybe why the percentages were so high of discount. But I will be getting $99 for that. I still think that that's okay. Do I wish I got more? Yes, but I think that that's fine. They then sold this Giorgio Armani mesh jacket for me. This was a bins find, and I feel like a lot of us resellers, when we find Armani, Armani Collezione, Giorgio Armani, Emporio Armani, all the Armanis, it's from the bins or it's quite cheap because it doesn't do very good. But they did sell this for $88, and it sold within a day. So it moved quick, and now I'll be getting $35 for it, which again, it's not crazy high, but this was a bins find. So $35 within like 24 hours from the bins. I think that that's great. This Layla Rose gold dress sold on there for $117. That was 40% off of their listing price, but Layla Rose does not really sell well for me, so I always send in my Layla Rose. Not that I've had it a ton, but it does not do very well for me personally. So I send it in. For this one, I'm getting $59 because it was priced under $200, so I'm not getting that 70%. But I still think that's fair. I got that at Unique for I think like 10 to 15, which is not too bad. Then they sold this Dior lace trim robe for $112.50, and that was 50% off. So this was priced over $200, and this was just a vintage like pink lace robe. So once again, Dior, new, old, business attire, sleep attire, whatever it is, I would send it in. It sells so well and for so much on there. Nowhere near what I feel like you could get on Posh. This red Valentino polka dot dress sold on there for $116.25. I actually did have this listed myself for quite a while for I think like $125. So as you can see, it sold for about what I had it listed at, but on the RealReal, it only sold for 25% off, which means it sold quite quick within like the first 2 months, and I'll be getting $58. So I'm just happy that that flipped quickly. I didn't pay much because Red Valentino can be very hit or miss, but I was quite happy with how quickly that ended up selling. This Dior gold peacoat, I did have this listed myself for quite a while. I even modeled it and everything, but it just was not selling for me. It had some attention, but I just got sick of waiting on it. It took up a lot of room, and it actually sold on the RealReal for $186, which was 60% off of their listing price. Once again, they marked Dior just so well. I'll be getting $130, which I think is very, very fair. I cannot remember where I got this. Shockingly, I've gotten a number of Dior wool peacoats from the bins, but I'm not sure if this one was. I would say at most, I probably paid like $30 somewhere. So to get $130 is fantastic. And last for July is this Marchesa Note sequin dress. And this sold for $195, and that was 40% off of their listing price. And I get $137. And I know in past RealReal videos, I have told you guys that Marchesa Note is definitely one of my favorite brands to send in. And if it's Marchesa Note and I'm saying it wrong, I apologize. Please don't attack me. But Marchesa Note sells so so well on there and they market so high. So send yours in if you have some. So let's move on to August. So in August, my first sale to tell you guys about is this pair of Gianvito Rossi palm sandals. These sold for $79.50, which was kind of a lot lower than I wanted them to sell for. That was 70% off of the listing price, but I think these were like a size 5, which even for them is hard to sell. Like, it's hard to sell for us, it's hard to sell for them. There's just not like a huge market for smaller sizes, unfortunately. And so I get 56. I believe I still made money because I probably paid like 30 to 40. I didn't make much, but I was hoping it would sell for closer to the listing price. Either way, I still would sell my Gianvito Rossi into them. Then I sold this Woolrich red coat, which we just talked about on the list of brands. This sold for $77.50, and that was 75% off of their listing price. I'll be getting $54, which is 70% of what it sold for. Once again, I wish it sold higher, but I'm not in control of that. It was off season, so I am just happy to get $54. This was probably a pretty cheap Goodwill find for 10 or less, so I'm happy with that. Oscar de la Renta wool jacket sold for $76. That was 20% off, and it sold the day it was listed. It was listed quite a bit lower than I would expect them to list Oscar de la Renta for, but it sold super quick and I get $23, and that was a bin's fine. So I will take it, and it was vintage, so I could have never sold that myself. This Farm Rio linen banana dress sold for $200 at 20% off. This sold in under a week of being listed, and I get $140. And y'all might be like, what in the world? That's probably higher than the retail of the dress, and I totally agree. Lately, they have been marking Farm Rio so high, especially the dresses. So if you have some, once again, they're just like sitting around, I would send them in. Altuzara Cherry nightgown. This, they listed as a nightgown for some reason. Pretty sure it's just like a normal silk dress. Since they listed it as a nightgown, they listed it lower than I was hoping for, but I just didn't want to spend the time to text them and be like, will you raise the price? And then wait like 3 weeks for them to be like, no. So I let them list it at the price they did, and sure enough, it sold the day it was listed for $124, and I get $62. I know I made money on that, but I wanted to tell you guys about that one because they mark Altuzara dresses very high. Like, very well. So once again, if you have an Altuzara dress, I would send it into them. This is just a weird one that they chose was a nightgown, but normally, like, I have other ones that they've taken from me marked much higher and marked as dresses, not nightgowns. This sale is actually for my grandma. She gave me this necklace to sell for her, so I'm gonna give her the money earned from it, but I need to share it with you guys because I was like blown away at how much this sold for. So it is this 14 karat glass opal and onyx necklace. My grandma told me that she paid $200 tops for this. The RealReal took it. They listed it for $945. They said the retail was $2,400, which maybe my grandma's mistaken. I'm sure she's had it for a very long time, but also like value of gems and stones and metals fluctuates. It sold for $945, the listing price with no coupon allowed. Day of listing, and was never returned. Like, we are far past the return date. So she's getting $614 from that, and I was like, Nancy, you have done did it. Like, good for you. I'm so happy for you. So you jewelry people, I see you. You people are like rolling in the money. If you can go to the like Goodwill or Savers and go through those jewelry jars and you find like a random gem like this, I applaud you, because I was like, what? Because I'm not a jewelry person at all. So I was like, $945. Anyways, 3 more sales left that I wanted to tell you guys about. First one is this Veronica Beard floral lavender lace jacket. And for me, from Veronica Beard, the blazers are like the only thing I like to sell nowadays. Even just the jackets like this just don't do well. So I had purchased this, I don't know, 50 tops, 50 at the most is what I got it for. I sent it in because it was not moving. It sold for $138, and that was actually 60% off of their listing price. Like I said, they've marked Veronica Beard quite well, and I get $97, but moved faster than I could have. I finally get my money back plus some, so I'm happy. Once again, if you have Veronica beard that's just sitting like this was for me, I would send it in. Altruzara silk midi long sleeve dress. So here's what I'm talking about when they actually mark it as a dress instead of a nightgown. This sold for $127.50, and that was half off of the listing price, so it was marked at like $260-ish, like $255 is that, I think? I will get $89. So I'm happy with that. I couldn't have got that on my own. If you have Altruzara or if you see some, don't be afraid to pay up a little bit for the Altruzara dresses and send them in. Or Altruzara blazers, or Altruzara something else. I don't know, but they mark Altruzara very well. And last but not least, is something from my own personal collection. And it is this Burberry quilted jacket. I got this from some Goodwill somewhere like 2 years ago. I got a really good deal on it. I know that. I think I paid $20 at the most. And it sold for $260, and that was only 20% off of the listing price. This was listed at a very perfect time. I think it was listed in August. Well, it was 20% off, so it was listed like within the week that it sold-ish. And so it sold very high. Probably with the RealReal, do try to send stuff in when it's seasonally appropriate. I don't always do that because I guess I self-sabotage myself. Fun fact. Yeah. Send stuff in seasonally, I suppose, because it sold for $260, I get $182. I get to move on to new, better, bigger, funner coats in the future, and I made actually quite a bit of money on that, so I'm very happy with that. And that's all that I have for you guys today. So I know this was just a half an hour of me literally just like babbling and babbling and babbling, but that's how these RealReal videos always are. I hope that you learned a thing or two today from this video, and I hope that your RealReal months have been going well. I hope that your payout today was high, and let me know if you want to see more RealReal videos in the future. I love doing them for you guys. I just sometimes have a hard time coming up with like what to talk about. So that's why I thought that I would cover some more like fall themed categories and brands today. But if you have any ideas for a future RealReal video and topics you want me to cover, do let me know. If you have questions about how to get started or kind of what the RealReal is and kind of more like the bare bones, or other brands that I like to send in or don't like to send in. Like I said, I have an entire RealReal playlist that covers all of that, so I will link that below. And I will see you guys tomorrow on the second channel if that interests you. Or I will see you guys on Saturday with Ryan for What Sold Saturday. I'm gonna go like take a lot of deep breaths, find my inner peace, find like a breathing rhythm again, and I will see you guys on one of those days. Goodbye.